Welcome, everyone. My guest today for this sponsored episode is Ed Girding, Senior Vice President of Risk Solutions at Consolidated Analytics, to talk about a proactive approach to QC strategy. Ed, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me today.
Great to have you. Let's jump in. This is such an interesting topic, right? So in your article, you emphasize a holistic approach to quality control. Can you explain what this means in the context of mortgage lending and why it's so critical today?
Yeah, when we talk about a holistic approach to quality control, it basically means don't be myopic and only focus on one or two components of your program. A holistic approach is extremely critical for lenders to reduce financial, operational, and reputational risk. And a best-in-class holistic approach should focus on all of the components of a quality control program. And that really includes your organizational structure. You want to make sure that there's no undue influence from operations, processing, underwriting. You want to make sure you're taking a look at your QC management and staffing to ensure you have the right management and staffing experience with folks that have a proven track record to perform all the assigned duties. You want to take a look at your QC training program. It should be robust, it should be frequent and up to date, and it really should be relevant in the current mortgage banking market arena. Next, you want to take a look at your QC plan and your policies. Again, making sure that all the investor requirements are updated and it's updated at a minimum annually. The reporting function is really important as well. So you want to make sure that you have a strong QC reporting function. It should include the results of all the reviews, trending over time, and also highlighting some of the highest risk defects so training and controls can be bolstered to minimize future occurrence. And last but not least, ensuring that you have the proper oversight and controls in place to manage your quality control vendor if you use one.
So, we just had this rate cut, right? Not that we saw this big drop in rates, but we are entering a slower season for purchase origination, even if we got lower rates, like, fall, winter, this is going to be the slow season. So when you think about that, what are some immediate things lenders can implement to improve their QC and what might be some longer term things they could do now to get ready when it starts picking up in the spring?
Yeah, makes sense. Yes, you're right. Typically heading into November and then throughout the winter months, mortgage origination volume tends to be down slightly, right? But this volume lag can benefit financial institutions, independent mortgage bankers, and credit unions because it gives them really a much needed reprieve from the daily grind of loan production. And what they can do then is focus on shoring up all their risk management policies and assessing their quality control program so that when the volume does come back, you're going to be prepared and you don't have to do those things and you can manage the volume appropriately. We're all hopeful that we're going to see some more volume down the road.
Yes, 25. It's like, I remember when I was at the infamous MBA conference where they're like, survive till 25. And we're like, hey, we are almost there. So if you're still here, you have actually done that, right?
That's right.
And we know some people are, have done better than others, but we're all in for a better season, I think, which is encouraging. How does proactive QC, when people think about QC, it's sort of like after the fact, right? I mean, it feels like that's the tail end, but how does proactive QC differ from traditional reactive approaches? And what are the key benefits of adapting that sort of strategy in today's mortgage market?
Yeah, well, a proactive QC program really seeks to identify and minimize risks before they become a big problem. And you can do that by taking a look at some of your highest critical defects on the post-closing side. And you can actually use those loan characteristics and add some discretionary sampling in the pre-funding reviews so that you're not funding loans that have defects. And you should start seeing the post-closing defects dwindle because you've proactively approached it on the pre-funding side of the house. And then the correlated reduction would occur on the post-closing side of the house.
What are some of the common mistakes or oversights that lenders make in their QC practices? And how can they avoid those pitfalls? Especially now that we're entering that slow season, what would you recommend they institute?
Well, sometimes when we assess a lender's quality control program and their entire quality control function, we note that more times than not, QC reporting can be enhanced by adding an executive summary component. And that executive summary component trends defects over time and across all of the review types. Having a 1 or 2 page executive summary report is really key, and it allows the executive team to have easy visibility into their loan manufacturing quality so that risks can be identified and acted upon. So it's always good to have really kind of a condensed summary for the executive team. And then the following detail is great for some of the department managers to drill into.
When you look at the at QC, it feels like one of those things that like it has to have buy-in from the top, from the executives. They're leading the way, and if it matters to them, it's going to matter to anyone. What do you feel like is the right mindset when it comes to QC?
Well, obviously, they should make sure that quality control is a priority, I should say, in their risk management philosophy and how they approach their loan manufacturing quality. Because again, that's where you're going to be able to identify loan eligibility issues, where you may not be able to sell them to the investor. Also, too, if you're really not having a good quality control program, there is some reputational risk there as well, because word kind of gets out like, oh, well, maybe they're a little bit lax on quality control. You don't want to have that type of risk. And operationally, you don't want to have that risk as well, because ultimately it could turn into financial losses down the road. And we certainly don't want to be losing any money, especially in today's environment.
Well, and I feel like, when we were in the rapid fire world of, 21, end of 2021, people were originating loans so fast and doing refis, whatever it was, like QC processes, we now know really suffer during that time. During this time, it feels like there's almost no reason why you shouldn't be really making sure your QC is buttoned up.
Yeah, true. And obviously the sampling criteria, a lot of folks use the either the flat 10%, which is required on the pre-funding and on the post-closing. But as your volume goes up, then your samples are going to increase as well. So not only does the production staff get an increase in volume of what they have to do every day, but so does your risk management and your quality control teams as well. They're kind of dealing with that onslaught of that volume also. So you want to make sure that that's what I talked about, was making sure you have all your ducks in a row. So when that volume does pop up, then you're really going to be prepared for success in the current market.
That's such a great point. I mean, it affects every part of the process, right? In your opinion, how can credit unions and small to mid-sized lenders with limited resources build a solid QC framework without overwhelming their operations?
That's a good point. Many smaller credit unions and independent mortgage bankers don't really have the big budget or the resources that some of the banks and financial institutions do. However, it's still critical that they access their QC programs to make sure that they have everything covered from a regulatory and agency requirement perspective, because not doing so can leave them vulnerable to potential losses. And if they already have a small budget, obviously you don't want to compound that by adding losses on top of that. This is really one of the reasons that we developed, that recently rolled out Consolidated Analytics QC checklist. It's really a cost-free way for lenders to assess their QC program and identify if any enhancements need to be made.
That's awesome. Fannie Mae's QC requirements emphasize data integrity. What can lenders do to ensure accuracy in the data they provide throughout the mortgage process? I've been interviewing execs at different companies over the last year on the technology side, whether they're tech execs in mortgage or actually on the other side. And what we hear constantly is like, it's the quality of the data. If you don't have quality data, you really don't have anything.
Yeah, definitely. Data integrity is key to effectively managing a lender's loan manufacturing quality. And when you're performing QC audits, you should always include a review for data integrity. Obviously, you're taking a look at the accuracy and completeness of the loan application. You're recalculating income and assets, taking a look at the property valuation. And ultimately, you want to make sure that you are adhering to agency guidelines and your own internal overlays that you may have. Oftentimes, there's something else that lenders can do as well, because they can use technology by programming milestones and or hard stops in their loan origination systems to ensure that key data and loan information is accurate and complete before a loan can move forward in the origination process. So that's kind of a secondary control that you can have to ensure data integrity is the best quality possible.
Looking forward, what do you think will be the next big trend in QC for the mortgage industry? And how should lenders prepare for whatever's coming next?
Well, I wish we had a crystal ball, but looking forward a little bit to it, I think we're all hopeful that rates are going to continue to decline, right? And we have better volume numbers than we have seen over the last year or so. But what's happened over the last couple of years as volumes has dwindled, cost containment has been big, and so has headcount reductions, or you've heard kind of right sizing the organization. And that's been all too common over the last couple of years, because it's just really a component of the mortgage banking environment. All of us go up and down in the volume, and we kind of see how that works. But if rates come down and origination volume accelerates, it's going to be critical to make sure that you have the appropriate number of staff in your quality control, your compliance, and your internal audit functions to ensure the effectiveness of risk management policies and correlated long-term success.
What does that look like when we talked about proactive QC? So if you're looking ahead to bigger volume, at what point do you need that staff?
Well, it's interesting because sometimes you can outsource to a vendor and you don't have to reduce your own internal staff, right? You can use offshore capabilities to help out as well. And you see that on the origination side as well when contract underwriters are used. And what that really does is that really kind of helps you adjust the volume of the amount of loans that you're dealing with the resources that you have. And really, you want to try to go into it and keep your own internal staff intact and leverage maybe some other opportunities, as mentioned, offshore or via a vendor, so that you're not continually going into this cycle where you're hiring people and then it slows down, you've got to lay them off, and then you hire more people because it comes back up. So it can really be kind of a nasty cycle. And that's really one good way or a couple of good ways to manage that process.
I love that. Ed, thanks so much for sitting down with us. Love these insights and appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much for having me today. It's been a pleasure.